Richard. I know. I just have the same condition. Cookie mouth.
To frustrate us.
We have a lost and found department up here. I have somebody's ticket. See if you don't have it. Come up here and tell me what number you had, and I'll see if you're the winner.
All right, I think you got it. Recording, streaming.
And how's it sound?
I guess this is just here for decoration.
We check the sound of the stream.
So this right here, well, that's because we're not actually using it. This is our emergency backup switcher. It does all, we can program it to run clips and to do the lower thirds, but it takes some doing. And because we're having problems with this last couple days, I said just bring this in case. But the thing is,
It also requires hooking it up to the Mac.
right, but we don't have the right.
Ethernet cable.
But we don't have an. This doesn't have an Ethernet cable port. You need to have an adapter and the right type of case. You know.
Yeah.
And you open up some software and you can kind of see the cameras. Or I guess you could.
They wanted to, and they even misrepresented what I was asking about. They said it's for the service. They don't do it for the service. The service fine. Yeah, but the thing is, I'm going to bypass it because the accountant has been sick and wasn't able to get our reserve funds certified, so we can't appropriate any money. So we're just going to wait down. That's right. Well, it's because the principal owner of it picked out licenses, and then they only have to while that one employee. She's been sick a ton, so they're way behind on everything. So I don't think we'll be coming up in the morning today. I think they're going to be okay. Hey, because the senior housing is up. So that one that we were interested in.
Good evening, everybody. It is 7:04. We have a quorum. We have people still coming in, but we have a little bit of stuff to get through. It'll take several minutes, so we're going to start the meeting. Good evening. Welcome to the special town meeting of November 7th, 2019. I suppose I'm supposed to do this. Open the meeting. Okay, the return of the warrant shows that it has been properly served. Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all those we have lost since our last meeting. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce the people at the head tables. On my left, the Select Board, John Washkevitz, David Phil, Molly Keegan, Joyce Chunglo, Christian Stanley, our Administrator, David Nixon. On this side, we have Town Council, David Jenkins, Town Clerk, Jessica Spanknable, and two members of the Finance Committee, Amy Fiden and Alexei Levine was here. He has disappeared, but will be back. I am your moderator, Randy Eisner. As usual, we would like to acknowledge the Hadley Mothers Club for providing refreshments for the meeting. Please visit them at the back of the room and offer you their thanks. Also, I thank Hadley Media for televising and recording this and all the meetings that they do. At this time, Select Board Chair Christian Stanley would like to give a State of the Town report.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. We're excited for the 2019 Special Town Meeting. But before we start, I just want to thank Moderator Iser for granting me an opportunity to speak to you tonight. I want to provide you with a quick snapshot of the town accomplishments since the last meeting, budget update, and then a little look forward. I think the big news in town right now is the 3 construction projects happening. The Senior Center, Library, and Fire Substation going really well. Senior Center is starting to look like an actual building, which is really exciting, and all the other ones are coming along quickly. Also a note, there is a fundraiser, private fundraiser going on for the library right now, so see some library folks if you'd like to donate for the PD system they're trying to raise funds for there now. We just achieved a AAA bond rating, S&P Global rating in the town, which is really good for all these projects we're doing. Commercial development continues really well right now in Hadley with LL Bean and 110 Grill opening in the past month. With the Homewood Suites open now, we have 612 hotel room occupancy in Hadley. And if you need a dentist, see Route 9, a lot popping up there. Existing businesses are remodeling, more restaurants are on the way. We have adult use marijuana coming to Hadley. You might need it to get through the meeting tonight, I don't know. The building projects coordination team is reviewing 15 projects right now with a valuation of over $10 million, which is a lot. As of last month, we have a new Council on Aging Director, Haley Wood, who's here tonight. And just last night, we appointed our new HR Director, who will be starting right after Thanksgiving, Edward O'Connor. Really, we've been working on that for a while. Moving on to the budget, we have some good news and not good news. First, the good news, and actually Chief Spankable should be saying this, but the ambulance rebate we received this year will pay for the ambulance service, so that's really exciting. Looking at the bad news now, our free cash isn't certified yet. The town accountant service that we used announced that they would be going out of business, and since then it has been a challenge trying to get our free cash certified. So we're going to be doing things slightly different at town meeting tonight to recover it. We are in a situation with other towns. Other towns use this accounting service as well and are having similar issues. But moving forward, we're going to be partnering with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to coordinate a regional accounting service. And to make lemonade out of these lemons, we're going to use this free cash delay to pass a balanced 2021 budget at the next annual town meeting. But for now, we're going to have to transfer funds from stabilization into our general budget to cover the needs we have. And then in the spring, we'll transfer them back. And those will be about, for OPEB, around $300,000, the general budget around $30,000. And on the enterprise side, since reserve funds aren't yet verified or certified, we're going to have to transfer $90,000 from sewer impact fees to the sewer fund to keep it funded. And as a result of this change, we'll be skipping Article 4 tonight, which is the transfer to capital stabilization. For those of you that are interested in account balances, I can give you those. For stabilization, currently it's $1.955 million. Capital stabilization is essentially zero right now. Reserve funds, we don't have the balances because we don't have any free cash. So that's water reserves, sewer reserves, and Hadley media reserves. Then sewer impact, we have $252,000 in that fund. And in CPA, we have $1.6 million roughly available. Moving forward into the future, the pressure on town projects really isn't going to let up. We have DPW offices and possibly facilities, as well as the Russell School and Route 9 water and sewer infrastructure on the horizon. Those are imminent things coming our way. Soon we'll also be starting to focus for the 2021 budget season with a focus on the DPW, but we want to consider other staff as well, possibly a planner in town. And we need to focus on the sewer enterprise fund with a rate increase possible, just to keep that fund moving forward. In our recent SWOT analysis the select board had, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we have numerous items to be proud of and growth across all departments, but unfunded mandates and bench strengths are common weaknesses. The recent example of the town accounting function shows our vulnerability when we have a departmental shakeup. That being said, it's great to be on the select board and know that our town, our schools, our public works, and public safety are in the hands of smart and thoughtful people that have our community's best interests in their heart. So, thank you.
I have been informed by the security service here that the people standing up in the back and especially by the door need to find a seat, please. It's a fire safety concern. So everybody's favorite seats are available in the front. Thank you. Before we get into the articles, I'd like to go over the rules for the meeting. First and foremost, this is a democratic meeting. Everyone is entitled to speak and should feel free to do so without fear of retribution. Everyone has an opinion and that needs to be respected. If you don't understand what is being discussed, please ask for clarification. I want everyone to understand what they're voting on. The meeting will be conducted according to town meeting time. If you wish to speak to an article, please come to one of the microphones in the front and wait to be recognized by the moderator. State your name and residential address each time you have been recognized to speak. You must be a registered voter in the town of Hadley in order to speak unless you have permission by majority vote of the meeting. Keep all comments relative to the article or motion at hand. Do not disrespect any person in any way. Do not refer to any previous speaker by name. Please use previous speaker instead. Direct your comments to me, the moderator. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Those presenting an article may have 5 minutes. Presenters may be granted additional time at the discretion of the moderator. You may speak as many times as you feel is necessary, but please give others a chance to speak before returning to the microphone. If necessary, I will ask you to wait until others have had a chance to speak. Any amendments must be submitted in writing to the moderator as soon as the amendment is offered. Oh, there are amendment forms on the table in the back. Please remain seated during voting so that the votes can be counted quickly and accurately. And please silence all electronic devices. And if you happen by chance to miss when you came in, there are all kinds of handouts in the back relative to several of the articles. Okay, that being said, I think we can start. I want to entertain a motion to allow all officers, department heads, and agents of the town to address the town meeting on matters as may be informational. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by raising your cards. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll get into Article 1. This article requires a 2/3 majority vote. It was recommended 5-0-0 by the Select Board and 3-0-0 by the Finance Committee. Motion 1, move that the town amend the vote taken on Article 8 of the warrant of the annual town meeting held on May 2, 2019, and further that $17,553,756 be appropriated as set forth in individual budget appropriations listed under the column FY20 Finance STM recommended, as described in Table A, General Fund Budget in the handout referenced herein, and as funding therefore to transfer for local revenue, funds raised via taxation and other available funds to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the total sum of $17,553,756. I'm not done yet, but thank you. I got to read some numbers from Table A1, yes. So, raise and appropriate $16,819,639,000. That wasn't right. $16,819,639. Interfund enterprise receipts, $424,704. Free cash, not available. Stabilization, $306,041. MSBA debt fund reserve, $2,444. November 2014 premium balance, $928, for a total of $17,553,756. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Nixon, would you like to speak to this?
Good evening. So this is the follow-up budget that we plan to vote on after the annual town meeting. Basically, the budget is balanced, and with judicial use of some reserves, we're able to bring this budget to you in a responsible way with the express understanding that at the Springtown meeting, we will be replenishing those reserves both for Article 1 and for Article 2. The budget does the following things. It supports all the spending that we agreed to do at the annual town meeting. There are no budget cuts here. We're fulfilling contractual obligations which have arisen since the annual town meeting. We're funding transitions in 3 departments: the Human Resources Department, the Senior Services Department, and a planned retirement in inspection services in April. We are reorganizing the administrative staff in Town Hall to support Human Resources, Board of Health, and Town Clerk. We also are reorganizing some of the divisions within the Department of Public Works to enhance services in building maintenance, cemetery maintenance, and highway operations. And finally, because of our AAA bond rating, we have made a savings of about $52,000 in what interest we thought we were going to be charged. So we're going to apply that savings to pay down principal, which will save you money in the long run. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockton Street. Could you repeat the totals again? Because I think I have a different number.
In the handout, you'll see that the total is $17,558,000 and change. And the difference there is that we made a mistake of $5,100 to your favor in the source documents when between the handout creation and the article that was posted in the warrant. So you're $5,100 to the good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No further questions?
So any further questions or discussion regarding this article? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your card. Thank you. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. 241 to 0. Article 2, moved that the sum of $951,195 as set forth in the column FY20 Finance STM recommended in the handout entitled Finance Committee Budget FY 2020 Special Town Meeting 2019 as presented at the special town meeting held on November 7th, 2019 and incorporated by reference herein up to and including line entitled Total Budget Appropriation be appropriated to the fiscal year 2020 wastewater division enterprise fund account to be expended for the respective purposes set forth, with each item being considered as separate appropriation. I have another table to read. Wastewater salaries, $337,790. Wastewater expenses, $472,850. Wastewater debt, $130,555. Wastewater reserve, $10,000. Total budget appropriation, $951,195. And to meet this appropriation, take $932,983 from sewer receipts and $227,693 from sewer impact fee fund. And further move that the sum of $1,109,088 as set forth in the column Fiscal Year 20 Finance STM recommended in the handout entitled Finance Committee Budget Fiscal Year 2020 Special Town Meeting 2019 as presented at the special town meeting held on November 7th, 2019 and incorporated by reference herein up to and including line entitled Total Budget Appropriation be appropriated to the fiscal year 2020 Water Division Enterprise Fund account to be expended for the respective purposes set forth, with each item being considered a separate appropriation. And another table, water salaries, $405,825. Water expenses, $504,919. Water debt, $188,344. Water reserve, $10,000. Total budget appropriation, $1,109,088. And to meet this appropriation, take $1,302,293 from water receipts, and further move that the sum of $65,397 as set forth in the FY20 Finance STM recommended in the handout entitled Finance Committee Budget FY 2020 Special Town Meeting 2019, as presented at the special town meeting held on November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein, up to and including line entitled Total Budget Appropriation, be appropriated to the fiscal year 2020 Hadley Media Enterprise Fund account to be expended for the respective purposes set forth, with each item being considered a separate appropriation. One more chart. Hadley Media salaries, $17,767. Hadley Media expenses, $47,630. Hadley Media contingency reserve, 0. Total budget appropriation, $65,397. And to meet this appropriation, take $71,720 from cable receipts and $15,695 from stabilization. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Mr. Nixon. Oh, somewhere I should tell you how this got recommended. Select Board recommended 500, Finance Committee recommends 300, and this also is a 2/3 majority vote.
Good evening again. This is the enterprise funds. There are 3 of them. There's water, sewer, and Hadley Media. And again, this was a planned adjustment to the budget. Because we don't have certified enterprise fund reserves, we're going to have to use a judicious drawdown of both the sewer impact fund and the stabilization fund. Again, with the express understanding that when we come back at the annual town meeting, that we will be replenishing those funds by a like amount. Again, the budget is balanced. The adjustments are in line with the select board's priorities for these 3 enterprise funds. They cover contractual obligations that have developed since the annual town meeting, and it also covers mandated changes at the Water Division mandated by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Any questions? Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your cards. Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes 242 to 3. Article 3. This was recommended by the Select Board 500, by the Finance Committee 300. Move that the town transfer the following balances and amend the borrowing authorizations as delineated in Article 3 of the special town meeting warrant held on October 24th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Mr. Nixon. Oh, I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Thank you.
This is a housekeeping article. We try to do this every town meeting. We just look over our accounts and we look for balances for projects that are no longer being worked upon, have been completed, or are no longer necessary. And rather than have those monies stranded, we'd like to bring them back to the original pots from whence they were funded. $3,910 cash back to the original pockets of funding sources. And for the borrowing authorization, we're reducing the borrowing authorization by $17,838.76. It helps us clean up the chart of accounts. We have to report these balances on the chart of accounts for SEC, and this just cleans it up and frees up borrowing capacity elsewhere.
Any questions or further discussion? Andy?
Andy Morris, Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. Mr. Moderator, I have an amendment to Article 3.
Okay, would you bring it forward, please? Explain to us what you're trying to do, please.
Okay. The amendment is to add a line on the chart, returning money that was voted by town meeting in 2014 from the Community Preservation Act. I'm the Community Preservation Act Committee Chair. From the historical set aside to be used to repair and restore the Russell School in North Hadley Hall. $21,600 remains unspent. We had expected the Select Board to place a warrant article returning that fund to CPA, as is tradition in town, but they declined. So I'm proposing an amendment that will return the money to the CPA fund and can be used for other projects in the future.
Okay, I was just trying to find out whether that was within the scope of the article, and I have been told that it is. So, I have a motion to amend. And a second. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the motion to amend. Any further discussion on this?
Or questions?
So this is a little of a contentious issue because this money was allocated in 2014 with CPA funds to put toward the Hooker School and the Russell School. It was a $25,000 article at that time. I believe there's $23,000 remaining in that article. Andy?
I have 21,000.
21,000, sorry. And so the select board had voted to use $10,000 of that fund to put toward a Russell School committee, and we took that vote in, what, a couple weeks ago, to do that. So this would be taking back that fund, those funds that the select board has allocated to put toward that Russell School committee. And the Russell School committee is a committee that we put together to look at what we can do with the Russell School. I think there's a lot of opinion on the select board and in town from different committees that we'd like to see that building restored or somehow brought back to some kind of useful state. So that committee was charged with figuring out some options for the school.
Any further discussion? Hang on, Jim.
Anthony Five, Cold Spring Lane. I think that I'm in favor of the amendment because, as I understand it, the current guidelines call for money that isn't spent over a certain amount of years to go back into the fund. This money wasn't used in that time, and even though that rule wasn't in effect back then, the spirit of the law should be, it should still be followed. That money should be returned, and the process should be followed. The money should be, the select board should go back to the CPA and ask for the money again. That's the current guidelines that we should follow, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Edwin?
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. The question that we need to ask is, what was the actual motion at town meeting? Because if the motion was to do a certain thing with the money, it's not, without due respect, it's not up to the select board to change the use. It's up to the people here to vote on it, because this is their hard-earned tax dollars. And if we have to go back to the actual motion at the 2014 town meeting and find out what it was intended to be used for, and then if it fits the scope, fine. If not, we can't really do this. Thank you.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think we're going to have that information available this evening. Okay, we're going to, modern technology may prove me wrong, so hang on just a minute. Jimmy?
What's the motion again? Can you read the motion?
Andy, would you read your motion again, please?
Yes. Andy Morris, we've been 45 Roosevelt Street. Annual town meeting, May 1st, 2014. Description. Article 22, rehabilitation of North Hadley Hall and Russell School. Account number 21-490-5825-A22000. Unused balance, $21,600 transferred to CPA Historical Set-Aside.
So you're asking to add to amend the existing motion.
That's right. That the account, that number I just read, be closed, and the money be transferred to the CPA Historical Set-Aside account to be used for future projects.
Okay, so basically you're asking to return the money
To CPA.
to the CPA.
I thought it was being, there wasn't something to the North County Hall, more of it.
Susan Russell, 189 Hockanum. Susan Russell, 189 Hockanum. My question is, if they had CPA money that was given for the Hooker and Russell schools that wasn't used, but we're now having Article 13 asking for money to set aside for the Hadley Building Committee for the Russell School at Article 13. But they had 20,000 plus they didn't use.
Okay, so from May 1st, 2014, Article 22, motion was made and seconded that the town appropriate and transfer $25,000 from Community Preservation Act historical set-aside funds for the preservation and/or rehabilitation of the historic North Hadley Village Hall as recommended by the Historical Building Preservation Plan, and the historic Russell School building as recommended by the Hadley Historical Building Preservation Plan. The moderator declared Article 22 passed by majority, 105 yes, 97 no.
Any further discussion?
I'm Claire Carlson, 133 Mount Warner Road. I'm on the Municipal Building Committee. The Municipal Building Committee is prepared now to work with the consultant to use the $10,000 to provide, can you speak up? Sorry, a report on what to do with the building. We haven't been able to work on this until now. The report would show several options and prices as to what could be done with the Russell School. It would show how much demolition would cost, if we could form a partnership with a private group, all the way to how much it would cost for the town to renovate. So we would like to keep this money to use for the Russell School Subcommittee. We've just formed the subcommittee. We have 4 town residents, plus myself, on this subcommittee of the Municipal Building Committee, and we'd like to use the CPA money to work on this historic building.
Thank you.
Al Weinberg, 108 Bay Road. Sounds to me like there's 2 issues. One is the process for the CPA, which should be respected about a time limit for the money. On the other hand, the question is, what was the scope of that original 2014 article? And it seems clear that the current $10,000 going to the Russell Building Committee is within that scope. So it's like, I mean, I have the utmost respect for the CPA. They've been very good to the cemetery committee, which I'm on, and I think their process should be respected. On the other hand, it's important that we try to do something with the Russell School Building. This new committee is, I think, a good step in the right direction, and I guess I'd like to see the $10,000 or the $21,000 stay with the building committee, and the rest of it go back to CPA. I suppose that would require another amendment.
It would. Yes.
Hi, Carolyn Holstein, CPA Committee and Historical Commission. There's a process here, and the process is money that isn't expended for the article or for what it was intended should go back to the CPA. And if the select board wants to start a new committee, they can easily ask the CPA committee for $10,000. And I'm sure it will go through town meeting, but there is a process, as we all know, that monies that's not expended needs to go back from where it came.
Thank you. Joe.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I would just remind the moderator that there are certain people in town who have a litigious tendency, and if there's any question about whether a process is clean or not, we might have an expensive lawsuit. Therefore, I would support this amendment, and I would also support, when it comes back, a motion to move that money from CPA into this new committee, but I think we got to be clean with it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we're going to vote on the amendment. Okay? And I would, Andy, one more time, tell everybody what we're voting, what you want to happen here. And just give me the tell them the numbers that you're trying to do.
Mr. Moderator, I think I would like to accept the previous speaker's amendment to my amendment. This way the new committee...
Nobody made an amendment. Somebody
well,
alluded to one, but they did not make one.
Okay, then I think I'm willing to amend my own amendment. And I would like to change the unused balance portion of the amendment from $21,600 to $11,600. And that way the new committee can keep its $10,000 and the rest of the money will be put back into the CPA account.
Okay. I need it in writing, please.
I'll be there in a second.
Got it? Okay, we've got it up here, Andy. We're all set. All right, so you made the motion. Do I hear a second? Okay. Any further discussion on the amended amendment? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by raising your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, we need a majority vote, it passes. All right, so the amendment passes. Now we're going back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, as mentioned earlier, Article 4 is being passed over. Article 5 is a very lengthy capital article. It's divided into subsections, 5.1 to 5.16. Each one is going to be dealt with individually. Select Board recommends 500. Finance Committee recommends 300, except that on the DPW double drum roller, the Finance Committee makes no recommendation. Capital Planning Committee recommends 500. So, Article 5.1, move that the town transfer $11,500 from water receipts for fire water hydrant markers for the Department of Public Works. And item 2 of that, $60,000 from water receipts for an assessment of the Mount Warner well field for the Department of Public Works. Okay, well, it says receipts, so. Okay. Mr. Stanley, we need a motion? All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Stanley.
Okay, just to make it quick, fire water hydrant markers are just markers that would go on the hydrant so we know where they are when the snowplow comes through, and, you know, little flags that go up on the hydrants. And then the Mount Warner well fields, that is an assessment that we'll do on the fields to look at the water quality up there. Those wells are currently offline, but it would be great if we could get them back online, and this test will be assessing those wells.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 5.2, move that the town appropriate $10,750 to pay costs of information technology, the Select Board and Board of Health, as delineated in motion 5.2 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts Special Town Meeting, Capital Article Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Second. A motion and a second.
These are just computers for Town Hall, even though it says Select Board, and then Board of Health computers and some software.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.3, move that the town appropriate $106,000 to pay costs of vehicles and equipment for the police department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.3 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This article is for police capital. So one is a new police cruiser. The second part is police cruiser cameras. So we got a grant or funds from the state this year to put body cameras or get body cameras for the police department. This will also be adding cameras to the cruisers themselves. And then the last one is police parts, ammunition, and training. This is something that occurs, I believe, every 3 years for the police training equipment.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I got one. Okay, motion passes. It's a 2/3? Okay. Okay, so that one passed 244 to 1. Article 5.4, move that the town appropriate $25,000 to pay costs of safety equipment for the fire department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.4 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This one is, I forgot to say, all these, the 5.2 through 5.5 are all borrowing within the levy, so this has no impact on taxes. It's all within the tax levy already. But this one in particular, 5.4, is for fire OSHA equipment. I talked about unfunded mandates and that opening thing. This is something along those lines. OSHA is now a requirement for the fire department, and this is for equipment such that the fire department can comply with the OSHA requirement.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Motion 5.5, move that the town appropriate $45,168 to pay costs of town hall renovations for the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.5 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
Okay, so we're skipping around, but these are town hall improvements. So the first one, DPW locks at town hall. That's a new key system for town hall, just so that we can keep track of who's coming and going into town hall with kind of an electronic fob system, as opposed to a key that would be reproduced and you don't know how many people have that particular key. The second one is town hall counters. So that's counters in the assessor's office, I believe in the collector and possibly the clerk's office. Is it there too? Counters? Yeah. And then town hall basement conditioned room is a room in the basement of town hall that can be used for storage. Just storage needs in town hall are running low, and so this room would allow us to store documents and different items in the basement.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 243 to 2. Motion, Article 5.6. Move that the town appropriate $30,000 to pay costs of upgrading and repairing gas pumps for the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.6 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This article is for repairing gas pumps at the DPW, something that's been needed for a little while.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.7. Move that the town appropriate $11,000 to pay costs of repairing the parking lot for the school department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.7 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, special town meeting capital articles motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? A motion and a second.
This article is for paving the parking lot here at Hopkins. It would be from Middle Street down that road, and I don't quite know where that would end, but I believe that the parking lot, if you need clarification, we can get that.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.8, this is a debt exclusion article, meaning that if it gets voted in here, it has to go to a ballot for final approval. Move that the town appropriate $105,000 to pay costs of acquiring an emergency generator for the use of the fire department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.8 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This article is for an emergency generator at the public safety complex. It's something that has been on the capital plan for several years now, and this year it really needs to get replaced. And just to repeat what Randy said, is debt exclusion, so if it passes here, it goes to a ballot vote, and then that would have an impact on taxes. Do you know what that is? David has the number.
So borrowing is outside the levy, so the estimated tax impact for the average single-family household is $7.50 per year for 5 years, so $7.50 each year for 5 years. Average single-family house is $324,900, and the percentage increase is less than 0.2% for the impact on taxes.
Mr. Matusco.
Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Proposition 2.5 articles coming up, including this one. We have a number that are already on the books now. So we would be adding to what is already on the tax rolls now. Am I understanding that correctly? If everything passes?
When would it get charged? When would that tax bill be released, so to speak?
No, if all these, including what we already are paying now,
Yep.
and including the next 1, 2, 3, the next 6. So we will be adding these 6 to what is already that we're paying now.
If they got voted in tonight and then voted in on the ballot, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any way to know how much those debt exclusion overrides are adding to the tax rate so that we can know what we're spending our money on?
We don't have the rate yet, but it would be that percentage increase, basically.
Right, but we're already adding X to the tax rate with what is already on the dole. If these pass, we're gonna be adding X plus.
So are you looking for the total of all the debt exclusion articles? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all. That's, because we have to know what we're gonna be spending our money on, that's all.
Understood. So I know that they're gonna have each individual one, like they just gave you.
Right.
Do you have the total? Okay, hang on.
Okay, so get out your pencils and paper. I'm going to read you 5 or 6 numbers. Motion 5.8, the impact is $7.50 per year for 5 years. All of these are going to be for 5 years. Motion 5.9 is $2.50. 5.10 is going to be $4.28. 5.11, $2.14. 5.12 for the school bus is going to be $8.57. The school IT is going to be $7.14. If you add those numbers up, that's the total impact.
Edwin, are you satisfied?
I'm still adding it up.
Okay. In the meantime, Mr. Spanknable.
Good evening, Mike Spanknable, 52 Bay Road, also the Hadley Fire Chief. I just wanted to make everybody aware of exactly what the article is asking for, because it is, like the chair of the select board said, for public safety. However, that includes police, fire, and our dispatch communication center, which is our 911 center. This is not a portable generator on wheels. This is a pad-mounted generator that supplies power to the whole building in the event that power off the street is lost. The generator that we have right now is the 1995 when the building was built. We maintain the generator annually with inspections, and it's come to its end of its service life. So FM Generator, which is our servicing company, has been working with us for the past 5 years to ensure that we know when the end of service life is, where it's going to be more difficult to get parts. We've already had to replace the exhaust that rusted off the top of it. So when you come out to vote, I just wanted you to understand how critical this thing is in the event that we lose power during one of these storms. I don't know exactly what the kilowatts are, but it's a pad mounted, and it has a Detroit diesel motor in it, and it's large enough to supply every portion of the station. It's not just for emergency lighting. It controls all the power in the facility. So it will be an in-kind match to what's at the station now.
Thank you. Paulette?
Paulette Costello, 49 Knightley Road. I have a question as to, are there any things coming off the tax roll in the near future that could offset this?
I'm Linda Sanderson, Town Treasurer. We do have things coming off the tax payroll. The thing is, we've already incorporated what's coming off with the original plan when we put the buildings in. So we've known what is coming off off the debt, and we then filled that in with for the buildings, the amount that we were borrowing for the buildings. So I think that Edwin was referring back to that plan that we had for that said $95 an average household to get to this point, which was where we were, less items that were coming off, plus the buildings that we were buying. Where would that leave us? That left us $95 an average household above the fiscal 17 tax rates. Now, we can't continue to incorporate every new round of capital purchasing when we're buying. Every year we're going to be buying some kind of vehicles, equipment, paving, various smaller items. We're not going to be able to continue to revisit and try and put those in. So we're going to be back like we always used to be, which is when you're going to purchase when we're going to vote for new capital items, they're going to be above where we are. So our starting point's going to stay the same. These new purchases are going to be new borrowings, and it will add to the rate. And that's it. There will be, though, as David explained, there for 5 years. So let's say the things that we bought last year we're going to be there will be 4 years left on it. So there will be a bit of coming and going with those newer items offsetting each other. But we're not at that point yet, because we're really only 1 year into this new borrowing.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.9, this is another debt exclusion article. Move that the town appropriate $35,000 to pay costs of acquiring a Hearst vehicle extraction equipment for the use of the fire department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.9 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motion, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This article is for essentially the jaws of life and airbags the fire department uses to raise cars up if they flip over, something along those lines. I don't know the technical details, but it's basically life-saving equipment.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.10, another debt exclusion article. Move that the town appropriate $60,000 to pay costs of acquiring a double drum compactor for the use of the Highway Division of the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.10 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This is a double drum compactor requested by the DPW. This will be used to repair potholes, small paving repairs, those kind of things. The DPW was voted to get a hot box asphalt unit last year, and this is kind of to help out with that. And just a note, this is the one the Finance Committee had no recommendation on.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes 230 to 15. Article 5.11. This is another debt exclusion article. Move that the town appropriate $30,000 to pay costs of acquiring a mower for the use of the Highway Division of the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.11 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This is a replacement mower to be used for the town common and other mowing purposes, requested by the DPW.
Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor? Oh, hang on. The last minute.
Robert Adair, 359 River Drive. I'm just curious, a couple of years ago, we bought the DPW a new lawnmower to mow the common with. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, it's a John Deere, I've seen it around. I'm just curious if there's something that is wrong with that, or you know, why it is that we need to have another new mower this year.
Okay, understood. Who wants to answer that? Chris, could you help with that, please?
Chris Oka for DPW Director. Mr. Moderator, we still have the John Deere mower, but the John Deere mower needs a partner to be able to function well. At this point in time, the John Deere has been working town-wide apart from the commons. And also in terms of repairs, the cost of repair is going higher every day. So we are recommending that the town should give us another mower to substitute with John Deere. That's why we're asking for that 30,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 200 to 45. Article 5.12, another debt exclusion article. Move that the town appropriate $120,000 to pay costs of acquiring a school bus for the use of the school department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.12 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
Okay, this is the school department requests a replacement school bus. I believe the school bus this is replacing is in disrepair. This is a planned replacement. And with this article, I just wanted to mention real quickly about some other articles that were supposed to be recommended by the school. In back there, there's two projects, the Univent project and the girls' locker room project. Those have been put on hold for this round because the school's looking to get MSBA funding, grant funding, to fund a portion of those projects. So we'll probably revisit those two projects in the spring, but they're back there. This article, though, 512, is for the school bus replacement.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 265 to 5. Article 5.13, another debt exclusion article. Move that the town appropriate $100,000 to pay costs of acquiring information technology equipment for the use of the school department, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.13 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
The school department has requested an upgrade for IT. Just a note, this is a planned 2-year upgrade, so it's a two years it basically encompasses, instead of coming back next year requesting another amount. But that borrowing will occur as it's needed. It won't be borrowed all at once and saved. So, but just to make things more efficient, we're kind of voting for a 2-year IT upgrade at the schools.
Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 268 to 2. Motion 5.14, we are now out of debt exclusion articles. Move that the town appropriate $50,000 to pay costs for an engineering study for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant for the sewer division of the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.14 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
So this is sewer division is requesting funds to pay for a study to expand the sewer treatment plant. The current plan is nearing capacity, so we kind of need to plan for the future sooner rather than later. And just to be clear, this will come out of sewer receipts so that it won't affect the current tax levy or the debt exclusion. It will come out of the sewer rates, or that enterprise fund.
Any discussion on this article? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 266 to 4. Article 5.15, move that the town appropriate $30,000 to pay costs of sealing the sewer plant driveway surfaces for the sewer division of the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.15 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second.
This is an article to seal the exterior surfaces of the grounds near the sewer treatment plant, and this is a requirement of the DEP.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 268 to 2. Article 5.16. Move that the town appropriate $90,000 to pay costs of a vehicle for the water division of the Department of Public Works, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, as delineated in motion 5.16 in a handout entitled Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Capital Articles Motions, November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Motion and a second.
This is a water division replacement vehicle, F-350, and is a scheduled replacement.
Any discussion on this article? Mr. Matusko.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. You know, I'm sitting here for the last 20 minutes and I'm looking over all this stuff. And I'm kind of wondering, how come this isn't in the budget items? How come, you know, a lot of this stuff, if the water department needs a new truck, shouldn't they put it in their budget? If, you know, if we're gonna do, if we need a school bus for the schools, shouldn't they put it into their budget so that we don't have to keep going to an override? This is a troubling trend that I'm starting to see where we're getting an awful lot of overrides, and it's raising our taxes tremendously.
This is not an override article.
I know, but previously they were. I'm just kind of wondering why this wasn't in the budget originally.
Mr. Nixon?
Some time ago, town meeting passed a bylaw, capital planning bylaw, that set up requirements for capital purchases that needed to be vetted by the capital planning committee. So the policy of the select board and the finance committee, once that capital planning committee process was put into place, was to take out the one-time expenditures contained within the operational budgets, such as trucks, such as police cruisers, such as other one-time purchases, and give it to the capital planning committee for their review, recommendation, and presentation back to the town meeting. So this is following the bylaw that the town meeting set up some time ago, to have a capital plan for the future capital costs of the town, to vet those capital requests, and then to bring them back for approval by town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, I got the numbers. We have 29 against. And 231 for, 29 against. Does that add up to 270? 41? All right, 241 for, 29 against. Motion passes. Okay, we are done with Article 5. Okay, Article 6 is about North Hadley Ball Field and Zaturka Park. This requires a 2/3 vote to pass, and the Select Board recommends this 5-0-0. Move that the town authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court to release land protected under Article 97 of the amendments of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, said land located at 239 River Drive, adjacent to North Hadley Village Hall, and acquired by the town pursuant to a February 7, 1916 vote of Hadley Town Meeting. And further, that the town designate Zaturka Park, located at the intersection of Huntington Road and Breckenridge Road, as recreational land. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Mr. Phil.
So the select board has been working on what to do with this building for probably 15 years or so now. We did accept the bid of a local resident to redevelop and remodel the building and combined use with apartments, a performance venue, and a workshop for himself. In order to do that, in order to make the deal happen, we need to remove the Article 97 protection that's on the ball field associated with the hall. This individual is not interested in the building if the ball field cannot go along with it. He needs the room for occasional parking, similar to what the North Hadley Congregational Church uses it for now, for overflow parking on occasion. We did, just at our meeting the other night, confirm that if this was to be approved by town meeting, he would be okay with a deed restriction on the property, keeping it open for green space and public access as it is now. And just to clarify one issue that's come up in the last few days, there was a widespread rumor going around that this property was a gift to the town and could not be sold. We did locate the deed from 1916, and in fact it was taken by eminent domain at the time for the purposes of a playground when the school the North Hadley Hall used to be a school. So therefore we legally can sell the property. We just need to remove the Article 97 protection to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Phil.
Ginger Goldsberry, 247, 245 River Drive. Last year, I spoke adamantly about keeping the green space, and that all worked out pretty well. This time, I still want to keep the green space, and I feel very strongly that we should remove the Article 97 designation so that people can legally park in that property. Because right now, they park there illegally when there are events at the church where they need overflow parking. So I think this is a great idea. I think the project that has been submitted for the building is terrific for the village, for the town. And I think it's important to keep the green space, but use it as we can for parking and maybe even for a playground when that opportunity arises. There are little kids there all the time these days. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Andy?
Andy Morris, 45 Roosevelt Street. I appreciate the difficulty that the select board has been having selling this particular parcel. Things have gone wrong from the beginning. And even if we vote tonight to accept this article, things are still going to go wrong because the general court has to approve of the removal of the Chapter 97 protection. And they are not going to approve it because we are flouting the spirit of the Chapter 97 law, which is for every acre out, an equivalent acre in. And the 7 for putting the protections on Zajerka Park is not going to qualify in the eyes of the general court. And then we will be back here again, having messed up yet another sale of this building, which I'm opposed to selling anyway, for full disclosure. So we have to do something to convince the general court that we are serious about replacing this 1 acre of town-owned waterfront property in order for them to accept our recommendation that it be removed. And so, since my first amendment went over so well, I have an amendment to Article 6.
You may read it. It's your amendment.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me, everybody. Add in paragraph 2, and that any money raised by the sale of North Hadley Hall be used exclusively for the purchase of an equivalent 1 acre waterfront land elsewhere in Hadley to be used for recreational purposes.
Okay. We have a motion, but I think something needs to be clarified here. The property in question is not waterfront property. It is close to the pond, but it is not waterfront property. I believe. Is that?
Well, there is some debate as to whether there is public access, but many people believe that there is and that there was.
I have firsthand knowledge of this property in that many years ago my firm surveyed it prior to any of this happening. So I do know that the property line does not go to the pond.
Okay, well, I'd like to, I don't agree, and I'd like the amendment to stand. I mean, a lot of old timers have come up to me and said, yes, they remember when the road went down to the pond and they used to launch boats there.
Okay, that doesn't mean the property goes there, okay? But anyhow, I don't believe that your amendment is appropriate in that if there's the question of the validity of the waterfront issue, that you're making an amendment that it may not be feasible.
Mr. Moderators, it's a point of order. May I show you something?
Certainly.
You speak? Mayhaps.
Okay. I misspoke.
Nobody's perfect.
That's fine. Especially me. All right. So Mr. Dwyer has just showed me the survey that I did, and I obviously forgot. And there is indeed 88 feet of frontage on North Hadley Pond. I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Dwyer. Council wants to look at your amendment. Yes, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Jenkins. I'm from KPUR Town Council. I've never met any of you before. My role at the firm is usually dealing with your labor unions and employment law, but I'm covering here tonight. The problem with the amendment, sir, is that town meeting is the town's legislative body. The Board of Selectmen are the town's executive body. The legislative body has the ability to appropriate money to allow the executive to spend that money. The legislative body, i.e. town meeting, the legislative body, i.e. the town meeting, does not have the authority to direct the selectmen to spend money in a particular way. So if this amendment went to a vote, I suppose there's an argument that it's beyond the scope, but if it did go to a vote and was approved, the selectmen would not be bound by this because town meeting cannot direct the selectmen to spend money in a particular way, with all due respect.
Okay, so I'm on for one in amendments tonight. Can I address the article then without the amendment?
Okay, so you're going to withdraw?
Well, if you struck it down, then it's done.
Okay.
So yes, as I said, for chapter 97, it's the number of acres out, number of acres in. New acres, you can't just say, oh, we have this little park that's not protected, and then we're gonna put the protection on there. And so we're gonna mess up selling North Hadley Hall, and it's just gonna get further and further run down. So I would vote no on this, because it's not gonna work.
Thank you. Hold on 1 minute, Mr. Dwyer. Mr. Phil would like to speak.
Like anything that has to go to the courts or the state legislature, it's not a guarantee that this will come through. What I can tell you is if we're unable to remove the Article 97 protection, the plan is that the building comes down by the end of the year, or we start moving toward that direction. So that's why we're making this attempt. It may be shot down, and this may not happen. But I can tell you that if we don't remove the restriction, the person that's interested in the property is out.
Mr. Dwyer.
Bill Dwyer, 388 River Drive. Mr. Moderator, this is a horrible idea. We should not even be thinking of parting with this green space. As has been noted, it does have water frontage. It's functionally the only water frontage we have on North Hadley Pond. It is the largest green space we own in the village of North Hadley, which, as many of you will know, is one of the more densely settled parts of town, more densely settled than even West Street or Middle Street. Giving up that open space is just wrong. And if the property cannot be sold without the addition of the ball field, so be it. The market has spoken, down it comes. I would also add, in support of the previous speaker's comments, the property that is being offered is a false equivalence. Zaterka Park functionally is already protected by Article 97 under the holding of Smith versus the City of Westfield. which was a similar situation. That was property that was being used, originally taken for non-payment of taxes, used as a park, never dedicated as such to a park, but used as a park, called a park. That's functionally what we have at the Turner Park. It started life as a stump dump, it ended life as a little league field, and now it is an outdoor venue. So I would submit that we are not offering to exchange 6 acres for 1 acre. We have 7 acres of protected land there, and there's nothing to exchange. I would also just end by saying, Mr. Moderator, that I don't think it's a good use of town meeting time to bring the same article back repeatedly when there has been functionally no change. It's one thing to bring things back when there has been a change, but this is basically what we debated and what we voted on at annual town meeting, and there's really no reason to be disturbing it so soon thereafter.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hieronymus.
Mr. Moderator, Peter Hieronymus from 15 Malmore Road. It's my proposal that was accepted by the select board. It's been my intention to try to find a way to save this building. Not only save it, but bring it back to be part of the community again. I don't want to develop the field. I've tried many different ways to come up with a solution so that the field remains protected and remains available to all the residents of town. I've also put in my proposals that I want to assure you that I want the church to continue to use this field and use it on a much larger scale. I did try to find out if Article 97 could be transferred so that would keep the protection in place. I found out just last night that this couldn't happen. I proposed that if this couldn't happen, then it would go into Chapter 61B. I also learned last night that we need to have a minimum of 5 acres to be under 61B. So that can't happen. I do know that anyone can write any kind of an agreement. It can be composed and put together in any way that the town people feel would meet the needs of the town to make sure that you're satisfied that the town field is still available for everyone and will remain protected. All it has to do is be written, signed, and filed with the deed. The big part for me is to save the building. It's not only to save the building, but also make it part of the community again. I want to restore it, and I want to open the doors to the community again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy Cooney, 105 East Street, and member of the Historical Commission. I just want to reiterate that despite the fact that there might be legal hurdles we have to get through, the idea that we cannot save North Hadley Village without doing this, we need to save that property. It is a beautiful piece of the town's history, and the proposal, as you just heard, is to turn it towards the community. It would both be able to be restored and used by the community. And I don't think that there's any better proposal that could be on the table than that. If we do not turn over the green space, it is going to be demolished. There is no reprieve. We have been told that over and over again. And so it comes down to whether or not we want to keep this piece of our history or let it be destroyed.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. Okay, so
Name and address, please.
Bianca Epstein, 77 Hockenham Road. So, I moved to amend the motion as follows. Okay, that the purchaser of the property, should it be purchased at 239 River Drive, be required to purchase and make available to residents of the town equivalent waterfront frontage with access to the Connecticut River with at least as much frontage as is being removed from Article 97 at Lake Warner. And my reason for this is that we don't, as a town, have any public green space that's open to everybody along the Connecticut River as a park or picnic able area. So that's what I mean.
Okay, hang on one moment, and we want to check with council on this one. Bring that up to us, please.
I've been thrown to the wolves once again. I should have probably said the first time, and I regret now that I didn't say it, that the role of town council is completely neutral. So anything I say is not an opinion on whether or not this article should be adopted or shouldn't be adopted. We have no opinion on the merits of an article, and this is especially true when they have to rule or provide advice on proposed amendments. This is much like the prior amendment, but a little different. But its substance, the town meeting cannot impose obligations on some unknown future owner. That is a matter of negotiation between the Board of Selectmen and the potential owner. So town meeting would not have the authority to make those kinds of restrictions, recognizing that some people might think these are great restrictions. The other issue is that you may note in the article that's before you, there's no authorization requested to sell the property. That authorization had previously been given by a former town meeting. So at the present time, the Board of Selectmen has that authority. So for that reason, again, with respect, I think it's beyond the scope of the warrant. Thank you.
I just want us to have some nice waterfront access for the residents of Haddon.
Thank you. Shel.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I support in principle this project. I like the idea of saving the building and keeping the land open. I would like to hear, if possible, the language of the deed restriction, because that to me was something I was going to ask for, and I'm glad to hear that negotiations have beaten me to it. I would like to really understand the scope of that, and it will influence how I vote.
Okay. Does anybody have that language? Okay, hang on one second.
So we have not negotiated the deed restriction at this point. All we have is the word of Mr. Hieronymus that if this sale were to go forward, he would be open to such a restriction. Obviously, we're not, if we can't come to an agreement that satisfies this board, we're not bound to sell the property. So
I would put out my concerns then to the board as you negotiate that this is something that passes with the property from now till forever. That if this particular Mr. Hieronymus's plan doesn't work, or 15 years from now he gets tired of it and wants to sell it to somebody who wants to, put a Walmart there, not that anybody would, that open space remains accessible to the town in perpetuity. That's my big concern.
Understood, thank you. Mr. Kopacki?
Andy Kopacki, 6 Inchimer Road. Get this up to the right height. Anyway, I certainly agree with the efforts of the town and the local residents that have been to preserve the North Hadley Hall. It's a building that has served the community since the mid-1800s. And I see that we're at a standstill here with this Chapter 97 situation, and Zaturka Park already being a de facto recreational space. One thought that came to mind when we were originally considering purchasing the 10-acre lot where the fire substation is up there, one of the original concepts had allocating some of that space to recreation. In particular, after losing recreational fields where the new senior center is being built, a ball field is certainly bigger than an acre, but we could consider, one of the building committee suggestions originally was a multi-use field, perhaps in 2 acres of the southwest corner of that lot. I actually have written up on the back of a napkin type of amendment, if you're willing to entertain it, which would be to, instead of the language referring to Zaturka Park, to commit 2 acres to the southwest corner of the 10-acre lot, the current site where the North Hadley Fire Substation is being constructed.
Okay, understand. Hang on. Mr. Kopacki, we believe that that is not within the scope of the article, as it is a totally different piece of property than is written in the article.
But it's town-owned property, so it's not like we have to engage another owner.
Town council tells me it's inappropriate. Thank you.
Give it a shot.
Alan?
Alan Weinberg, Conway Bay Road. I am in favor of saving North Hadley Hall. I don't want to lose another building. We lost one already, although we are getting 2 nice new ones. But there are only a few of these buildings in town, and I think we are trying to do everything we can to see if we can save it. Now, the difference to me between last year's vote and this year's proposal, the vote, is there was no real proposal to save the building. It was just, okay, let's take 97 off and see what we can do with it. There is a proposal on the table now. So I think that makes a bit of a difference to whether we should consider this 97 proposal again. And all this does is just gives us the chance to save the building. There's no guarantee that any of this is going to happen. If the legislature comes back and says, no, we're not going to do it, well, we're no worse off. We still have the mandate to take the building down if nothing happens. But if we pass this, we have the chance to save it. If the legislature comes back and says, well, we'll do it, but you have to find some other property wherever, then we can cross that bridge when we come to it. And the proposal has many other hurdles to get through. Zoning Board of Appeals, probably, Planning Board, whatever, and negotiating the deed restriction. All this stuff is not set in stone. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect proposal, but it's something that we can try to save this beautiful building and add something to the community. If it comes down, all you're going to get is a vacant lot, an eyesore. It's not I don't think the town's going to spend money to build some kind of a park on the footprint of the building. That building footprint, by the way, does not have any waterfront access. And I think that I would rather see the town get some money for the building, put it back on the tax rolls, save the building, and then work out something to make sure that the field is in open space use and has public access, and there are many vehicles to do that other than Chapter 97. I think we're doing that on the mountain with the deed restrictions going to come up later on, so that we can do that. And the last point I'd like to make is that it may be possible in discussions with the developer that we don't actually need to sell the whole, I think it's 1.5 acres of the ball field. Maybe a part of it could be sold for his use, and the rest of the town could still own with a deed restriction on it. So I think there's many options there, and none of them are perfect, but I think we can't do anything unless we take this first step to take 97 off.
Thank you.
Peter Milady, 144 Mount Warner Road. As a member of the Friends of Lake Warner, I'm intimately familiar with this piece of property and other properties around the lake, and this piece of property is unique. I do support the preservation of the hall. I do also support the preservation of that unique, you can't value it, piece of land in the center of Hadley. However, you're asking us to buy a pig in a poke. Unless you have a written, legal, contracted deed restriction, we don't have no guarantee that the future owner is going to guarantee to preserve that land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Washkevich, you've been waiting long enough.
Dave Waskevitz, 126 Middle Street. I think I'd like to have the town at least attempt to try to get this removed from the restriction. Because if we don't try at least, then we'll never know if it would work. We do have land, like previous owners have talked about. Maybe we can't do it that way, but maybe we can use that as saying that we have other lands available and use that as part of the conversation. But we might gain a green spot by taking this building down, but we're going to lose a large piece of history that we'll never get back, and that is a town center icon that people are going to miss. And anybody that's lived in town as long as I have and longer, they know what that means to this town.
Thank you. Sir.
Andy, 116 Mount Warner Road. One thing that no one's mentioned is the cost of taking the hall down to the town. And I've heard anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000. I think that's unusually low considering there's probably a lot of lead, asbestos, all kinds of stuff in that building that we had to pay for. So if we can get it back on the tax rolls, as Peter wants to do, I'm all for it. It's a beautiful building. We shouldn't be taking it down. There's too many buildings that have gone down already, and we have to save it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dina Friedman, 16 Barstow Lane. I'm listening to the arguments on both sides of this issue, and one question I have relates to whether this urgency is really urgency or whether there could be more time to really come back and tell the town exactly what was negotiated with the seller, what other properties might be available to replace the 97 restriction, because I think a lot of us are uncomfortable with this false equivalency of Zaturka Park. I think that as I'm listening to people want to save the building and people want to save the green space, and I'm just wondering if there's like this rush right now to have to do something. I'm a little bit uncomfortable voting when there is so much unknown to this right now. So I'm wondering why this needs to be so urgent.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer.
Bill Dwyer, 388 River Drive. I'll start by saying I drive by this site at least twice a day, sometimes several more times. And I've been following the discussion with the select board, and no one really is trying to save it. It is getting shabbier and shabbier by the day. If there is some hope someone is going to come in from the outside and transform it into a tax gold mine, I'd like to know what figures you are using to project the future tax revenue from work that has not been done. A previous speaker mentioned concern about parking legally on the site. I'd submit the town common is also Article 97 land. People seem to have no trouble getting permission to park on the common. The select board, I'm sure, could have a permitting process that would allow legal parking, even on Article 97 land. And I would finally just want to say that the best and only way to be sure the town retains control over what goes on that property and retains access for the public to that property is to retain ownership of the property.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Dylan Mans, 146 Hockenham Road. I am in favor of passing this. I think that the developer, what we heard from him earlier, his spirit of trying to keep that space open for Hadley, as well as to protect that building, that iconic building for our town, is a good offer. I do think that a tax base, speaking to the last speaker, having a tax base of anything is better than nothing if we were to just make that into a ball field for Hadley. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Chunglo.
I move to call the question.
Okay, I have a motion to call the question and a second. Okay. Any discussion on calling the question? We're going to vote on calling the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 265-5. Okay, now we get back to the question. All right? So, are we done? Okay. The discussion was whether this is truly a two-thirds vote or is just simple majority, and the conclusion is that it is indeed two-thirds. So, that being said, we are voting to, where am I? Wrong page. Yes, wrong page. Just want to make sure everybody understands what we're voting for. So, we're voting to release the land that's under Article 97 at North Hadley Hall. So, a yes vote would release the land. Right? A two-thirds, a two-thirds vote would. Okay? So, all those in favor, raise your cards, please. Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 242 to 28. Okay, Article 7. Select Board recommends this 3-1 to 1. This is also a two-thirds majority. Move that the town establish conservation restrictions as delineated in a handout entitled Conservation Restriction, distributed to the special town meeting held on November 7, 2019, as it relates to Article 7 of the warrant and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? Second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Phil.
This article will, for the 336 acres by the Hadley Reservoir and along Chamorro Road, and Bay Road actually, will grant a conservation restriction to Kestrel Land Trust. The town will retain ownership of this land. What this conservation restriction does is permanently outlines the uses for this land. We had a committee set up with a broad diversity of people in town. You'll see in the handouts that the abilities to do everything from snowmobiling, four-wheeling, hunting, fishing, bird watching, you name it, is allowed. What this does is prevents a future select board that may not like bird watching or may not like fishing from prohibiting those uses on this land. So this land will be forever open to those uses under the restriction.
Any discussion on this article? We had a motion and a second. Okay, so, hearing no discussion, oh, we have discussion, yes.
Neil Sturkopoulos, 275 Bear Road. Just to clarify, the current land area that's in conservation does not allow power equipment, as far as I know, four-wheelers and snowmobilers, and the list on the handout does also not mention those. Did you say prohibit? You said it would allow snowmobiling and four-wheeling. Just to clarify, thank you.
In the actual conservation restriction that was drafted and reviewed by the committee, the town council, and Kestrel Land Trust, it does allow for those uses for snowmobiling and four-wheeling and things like that. There are some restrictions on where it can be done and how it can be done, but it does allow the use of snowmobiles and four-wheelers and things like that. I'm not sure how that got missed in the handout, but it's in the actual conservation restriction.
Andy?
Andy Morris, 345 Roosevelt Street. 20 years ago, can you believe it, a bunch of us got together and formed the group Save the Mountain, which stopped the development on the Mount Holyoke Range. I can't think of a more fitting anniversary present than passing this warrant article.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Moderator, point of information.
Yes.
Will you be offering an abstention option to the group?
Sure.
Thank you.
In the actual conservation restriction under 11C as in Charlie, the use of other recreational motor vehicles, but only with the mutual written consent of the grantee, the Hadley Conservation Commission, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So there's some hoops to go through, but it is allowed. This is for four-wheelers. Snowmobiling is allowed since it has a lot less impact on the land.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 268 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. Okay. Let's do the abstentions again, please. 3 abstentions, 4 abstentions. So, 265 for, 1 against, 4 abstentions. Okay. Moving on to Article 8. This requires 2/3 majority also. Move that the town transfer from stabilization $23,450 to fund a health insurance premium mitigation. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Mrs. Chunglo.
The Hampshire Franklin Group Insurance Trust was able to contain Hadley's self-insurance costs in the amount of $93,800 in FY19.
Good, thank you.
Not only did we achieve these savings, but the OPEB actuarially used this figure in determining future liability costs. Under Massachusetts regulations, we are mandated to share a quarter of the savings with union employees, non-union employees, and active retirees. This shared portion can be in the form of a reduction of health insurance premiums that would be otherwise paid by the employees and retirees, or as an underwriting for health promotion events and trainings. The exact distribution of these funds is subject to the discussion with bargaining units, non-union staff, and a representative of the active retirees. The mitigation sharing is governed by provisions such and such laws, and can be found in the link, and there's another link that government files documents. There is no impact on taxes.
Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes 254 to 1. Article 9. Select Board recommends this 500. Finance Committee recommends 300. Move that the town accept funds from the nonprofit Hadley Kids, Inc. pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, for an after-school program administered by the Hadley Public Schools. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Dr. McKenzie, would you like to speak to this, please? So that people can understand what this is all about.
I'm Dr. McKenzie, or I'm Amy, the superintendent of Hadley Public Schools. The Hadley Kids Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that previously administered the after-school program. They have voted as a board. They were a private nonprofit that was not at all associated with the schools. They voted as a board to dissolve and asked the school department to administer the program. And when their dissolution is complete and they make a determination as to remaining revenues and the amount that they would like to then gift to the schools, the law requires that the voters allow the town to accept a gift. And so whatever remaining revenues, they would then turn over to the school department.
Thank you. Hang on, just in case. Yes, sir.
Clerk Pollock, 16 East Commons Drive. Previous doctor, does the town currently have an after-school program?
Well, now the school department is operating what was previously operated by this nonprofit. So yes, the operations have continued. The people that use the program, it's been relatively seamless. Some people.
Is this ongoing money or a one-time only?
This would be a one-time gift. And then the after-school program operates similar to an enterprise fund. People pay a fee to use the after-school program, and then those fees cover the expenses of running the program. The gift, that my understanding at this point in time, is that there would be expectations or parameters placed on that gift, that money would be used exclusively to enhance and expand out-of-school time and after-school programs.
So it would become a pay-as-you-go system?
Yes.
Mr. Washkevitz.
Dave Waskevitz, 126 Middle Street. Do we know what that gift amount will be?
I think there is a number floating out there somewhere.
This is simply an estimate because ultimately this is not our money. It will be a gift. But my understanding is that it could be $100,000. But again, that is entirely up to the nonprofit organization that would make that determination.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Article 10, this is a CPA article. Select Board recommends 500. Finance Committee recommends 210. Community Preservation Act Committee recommends 600. Move that the town transfer $25,000 from Community Preservation Historic Set-Aside Funds to the Hadley Cemetery Committee for the preservation and restoration of historic gravestones in Plainville Cemetery. And further, if the funds are not expended by annual town meeting 2021, any unused balances shall be returned to the Community Preservation Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Andy, you going to speak to this?
Alan Weinberg, Chairman of the Cemetery Committee, 108 Bay Road. Last year, the CPA and the town meeting voted $35,000 for fixing the gravestones at Hockenham Cemetery and also for performing assessments of the other 4 cemeteries in town. We have 5 town cemeteries. The assessments came back, and we are now proceeding with 2 of the cemeteries, Plainville and Old Hadley. Next year, we hope to ask the CPA for money to do the last 2. So we're in a 3-year program to restore the gravestones in the historic town cemeteries, which date back to the 18th century. And have not had any real systematic attention to repair the gravestones. A lot of them are leaning, broken, fallen, and we're not doing every gravestone in the cemetery, just the worst ones. So we're in the middle part of that, and we hope that the town can support that. We're asking to do 45 stones in Plainville at a cost of 25, or we're asking CPA for $25,000. I want to add also that we've been getting donations from the Nash family, that we have about over $2,000 in donations for this work as well, that we will be using.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Stacy Cooney, 105 East Street, member of the Historic Commission. I just wanted to quickly point out that the Historic Commission did vote to support these measures from the Cemetery Commission.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 11 is another CPA article. Select Board recommends 500. Finance Committee recommends 210. Community Preservation Act Committee recommends 600. Move that the town transfer $82,000 from Community Preservation Historic Set-Aside Funds to the Hadley Cemetery Committee for the preservation and restoration of historic gravestones in Old Hadley Cemetery. And further, if the funds are not expended by annual town meeting 2021, any unused balances shall be returned to the Community Preservation Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Alan, would you speak to that again, please?
Alan Weinberg, 108 Bay Road, Chairman of the Cemetery Committee, just briefly. Well, the Old Hadley Cemetery is our largest and oldest cemetery. It's located on Cemetery Road on the way to the transfer station. I'm sure many people come by it every day. We are asking to do 133 stones in the middle part of the cemetery. The cemetery has 3 parts. The oldest, which is on the west, the newest, which is on the east, and the middle part, which is basically the 19th century. It has a lot of obelisks and granite stones, and a lot of them are ready to fall over if they haven't fallen over already. So we want to direct our attention to that section of the cemetery, do 133 stones over the next year or 2.
Thank you. Andy.
Andy Morris, Ribbon, 45 Roosevelt Street, Chair of the CPA Committee. I just want to encourage people to go down to the town burial grounds and cemeteries and see them for yourself. They're beautiful, they're historic, they're peaceful. You can go down there and contemplate life and death and all the big issues They're your tax dollars at work, so please go down there and enjoy them.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 12 is another CPA article. Select Board recommends 5-0-0, Finance Committee recommends 2-1-0, Community Preservation Act Committee recommends 6-0-0. Move that the town transfer $4,600 from Community Preservation General Funds and $400 from Historic Set-Aside Funds to the Hadley Cemetery Committee for a study to preserve and restore the historic stone fence at Hockenham Cemetery. And further, if the funds are not expended by annual town meeting 2021, any unused balances shall be returned to the Community Preservation Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Who wants to speak to this? Alan, you want to do that, please?
Again, this is the last of our cemetery projects for this year. This is not a gravestone. This is a stone fence restoration project that we've been wrestling with for 10 or 15 years, almost as long as we've had the hall. This stone fence was built by the WPA in the 30s, so it's historic. And it's also nice looking, but it's falling apart. And we've been wrestling with what to do with it. We have to jump through some historic preservation hoops. And so we decided, the cemetery committee decided, in consultation with DPW, that the best way forward is to get some professional help in terms of looking at the options, coming up with a design and cost estimates for what it would take to restore, replace, repair this stone wall, which stands about 400 feet along Route 47 and protects the cemetery from vehicles. So that's what we're asking for, basically planning a design money for this project.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? We are giving money back to the CPA. We didn't spend all the money that was appropriated last year. We will have some left over. It's going back to CPA.
Thank you.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I can walk to this cemetery. I go there often following Andy's good advice. I want to report that the Hockenham Village Association, and this is located in the village of Hockenham, discussed this at some length in our meeting a few weeks ago, and there was a strong consensus in favor. Just to put this in perspective, if you are coming up from South Hadley on 47, you hit that wicked curve, and then you hit the town line, and the cemetery is on your left, and the dirt road going up to the mountain gate is on the right. And particularly late at night when people have been imbibing in South Hadley, sometimes the cars don't always stay where they belong, and the walls have taken a hit. So the whole neighborhood was basically in favor of this, of those who came to the meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 13 is another CPA article. Select Board recommends 5-0-0. Finance Committee recommends 3-0-0. Community Preservation Act Committee recommends 5-1-0. Move that the town transfer $8,000 from Community Preservation Historic Set-Aside Funds to the Hadley Building Committee for emergency repairs to preserve and restore the historic Russell School roof. And further, if the funds are not expended by annual town meeting 2021, any unused balances shall be returned to the Community Preservation Fund. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Who would like to speak to this? Anybody from the building committee?
Claire Carlson, 133 Mount Warner Road, Municipal Building Committee.
The municipal building committee needs to, the town needs to repair the roof. It's mostly the flat part of the Russell School building. It's a slate roof, and it's an immediate repair. It's needed to preserve the building, and we would like this motion to pass.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Article 14. It's an article relative to water meters. Move that the town amend the water regulations as wait a minute. Time out. Select Board recommends 500. Move that the town amend the water regulations as delineated in Article 14 of the special town meeting warrant held on November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Mr. Phil.
What this does is require the use of radio or remotely read water meters. Currently, all the meters in town, with the exception of about 20 or so, have been converted to radio read, so the truck can drive by, not even stop, and basically read your water meter remotely. What we're finding from the DPW perspective is those 24 meters are requiring manual meter reads, and people are having to go out there multiple times and trying to access meters. We've also got some meters that are inoperative, and we haven't been able to access the property. So, you know, we have no way to account for that water. And so what this would do is require that if we have to send someone out for a manual meter read, and you haven't allowed the DPW to access your property within 60 days in order to replace that water meter, there'll be a $50 charge.
Any discussion on this article?
Stein, 77 Hockenham Road. I just have a question. How do we know if we're one of the 28 meters? I could be one of them. How would I know? I got a service fee on my bill. Does that mean somebody had to?
Who can answer that question, please?
If you are one of those 24 people who have manual read meters, you would have received many letters from us saying, please, can we read your meter? We're not subtle about these things, you would know.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 15 is stormwater erosion and control article. And so, Article 15. Move that the town amend Chapter 195 of the Code of the Town of Hadley as delineated in Article 15 of the special town meeting warrant held on November 7, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second. I'd like to hear from the planning board on this, please.
You get your chance.
This is not a zoning, this is not a zone amendment, this is a general bylaw. It only requires a 50% majority. How this is here. The state EPA and DEP, federal EPA and state DEP are requiring that by, I think it's June 1st or July 1st of 2020, they are updating the MS4, the so-called MS4 bylaws, and any town or city in the state of Massachusetts that contributes to a federal waterway must comply with MS4. The Connecticut River is a federal waterway as well as a lot of the other rivers in town, excuse me, the rivers in the state. Yeah. Hadley and virtually all the communities in Western Mass and mostly east of Worcester, west of Worcester, somehow contribute to some of the federal waterways. And there's a whole complicated list of regulations you've got to comply with. Right now, the town has a zoning bylaw that addresses the former MS4 regulations. In talking with basically different councils, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and some others, they have recommended that we write a general bylaw and eliminate the zone bylaw addressing stormwater and erosion control. It's all about not polluting the federal waterway, which is the Connecticut River. And it's a rather extremely complex issue, so I'm not going to try to explain the bylaw as much as how it's here, and we have to do something. If we aren't in compliance with the new regulations by the middle of next year, we could face something from the state, and who knows what that could be, you know, loss of some kind of grants. We don't really know yet because they're not through the state. They don't give you really clear information on that. And basically, so if this bylaw passes, the next article eliminates the zone bylaw that addresses the same thing which was adopted a number of years ago.
All right, well, they have a technical issue they're dealing with. I'll let you speak while they work on that.
Peter Malady, 144 Mount Warner Road. As I understand it, the current stormwater management system or zone does not cover all of Hadley. Will this cover the entire town?
Bill just noticed that this bylaw doesn't have all the updated language. So if we could put this off and take the next article up so I could, because there's a number of recommendations and I know what they are, but I need a few minutes to draft the amendments, which are relatively simple, they're really clarifications. So if we could please skip this article and go to the next article and then come back to this after the next one has been discussed. Can we do that?
Yeah, as long as I figure out how to do it correctly.
Okay. If we remove the motion, remove the second, I think that's all it might require.
Motion to move debate until the next question is answered.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion to understand what's happening? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we're going to move on. Jimmy, how long do you need?
How long do I need?
Are you done?
No, it's gonna take about 5 minutes or
Okay, so we were discussing the fact that Article 15 and Article 16 are related.
Oh, I'm sorry, go to the last article, the one about the rezoning, the senior housing.
To amend your motion to go to question 17.
I make my motion to amend, to go to Article 17.
Okay, I have a motion. Second, okay.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're going to go to Article 17. This is a petition article it's a zoning article by petition. It requires 2/3 vote. The petitioner has requested that his attorney be allowed to speak on his behalf. So what I want to do, I will entertain a motion to allow Attorney Tom Reedy to present the article and allow Barry Roberts to answer any questions that may come up. I have a motion and a second. Okay, any discussion on that? Mr. Dwyer? No?
I'm doing the planning board report.
Oh, okay. All right.
We have to do that before we get into substance.
Okay, so, all right, Mr. Dwyer.
Well, we can vote.
Oh, yeah, I thought, okay. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Dwyer, planning board report on this.
Bill Dwyer from the planning board at regularly scheduled public hearing held more than 30 days before this date. 20 days, more than 20 days before this date. The planning board voted 4-1 to take no position on this article and make no recommendation to town meeting on this article.
Thank you. Mr. Reedy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So I guess first on behalf of Mr. Dion, we've got a kind of a point of clarification, but I think it has to come in the form of an amendment. The town meeting warrant article reads map 5G parcel 37. It is actually map 5C parcel 37. And so I'm happy to bring this up on behalf of Mr. Dion.
The motion clarified that, but the motion says map 5C, parcel 37.
I must have an old one. Thank you. Okay, so turning to business. So this, thank you very much, and thank you very much to town meeting for allowing me to speak on behalf of Mr. Dion. Essentially, what we're looking to do is to extend northerly the senior housing overlay district. So the senior housing overlay district allows over 55 restricted housing a bit more densely than it would other subdivisions. Currently in town, you have less than 2.6% of the entire land area under senior housing overlay. Approving this zoning article would amend that zoning map to include a 9.5 acre parcel owned by Donald Dion. And ultimately, if it's approved, and we go through the special permit process with the planning board, to develop a senior housing development with no more than 28 units. So this senior housing overlay came into effect in 2008, so 11 years ago, and there's only one development, East Street Commons. It's comprised of 35 units, and when it's fully built, it'll have 35 units. 20% of those are by Hadley residents, folks that lived in Hadley that moved into East Street Commons. If you've got the handout, it's useful to take a look at so you can see that there's a lack of sufficiently large and otherwise combined properties. You can look in the district and you maybe have 2 properties of substantial enough size to have a development on. And I think that speaks to why in these 11 years there has only been one such development. When you take a look at the master plan, there are a few goals. 55% of the respondents to the community survey identified senior housing as a preferred type of residential growth. Senior housing was identified as part of the vision and goals for the Hadley community. One of the specific objectives was to provide more senior housing. And a majority of the survey respondents indicated the need for senior housing. The 2018 annual town report by the building commissioner and the building commissioner's section, and I'll quote, "The first 55 and older development, East Commons Drive, off of East Street, has been very popular. Developed by Barry Roberts, the last of the units have been sold. Many of the new owners have opted to add many upgrades to their homes. What a great little community this has turned into. The town is in need of more 55 and older units. It is hoped this can happen in the near future." And without getting into specifics of development, if you just look at, this property is going to be developed. Mr. Dion is going to develop this property, whether it's through a 9-lot subdivision or if it's approved and planning board approves it through a 28-unit, maximum of 28-unit senior housing development. If you assume that each of those units is valued at $425,000, at the current tax rate, your annual tax revenue is $147,000. If you look at a traditional subdivision, at that same $425,000 assessed value, that brings in $47,000, about $100,000 difference. But the main difference is the education of school children. Each school child costs about $14,870. If each house were to have 2 students, for 18 students total, that's an annual cost to the town of $267,000. One of the other differences is that senior housing developments are required to keep their infrastructure private. So the roads are private, the utilities are private, the sewer's private, the water's private. If there's something that goes wrong, it's the homeowners association that takes care of it. Contrast that versus a subdivision, where the town likely would have that responsibility. So I know we heard a lot tonight about finances and money. If you'd like a way to increase the tax base without burdening some of the town resources, this is one of those ways to do it. Through the design, and without getting into too many specifics of the project, the design is intended to be sensitive to the neighbors, to pull the houses away from abutting properties. I think based on the design, the nearest one is about 125 feet. Nothing is closer house to house than that, or would be closer house to house than that. So I guess with anything more, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and open it up to other folks. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Reedy. Please keep in mind, this is about changing a zone. We're not going to discuss building a subdivision there tonight. That's a whole different process. We're voting on a zoning change. So if you have questions, keep them general, not specific as to what color the houses are going to be, where the sidewalks are, et cetera, et cetera. That comes at a later date if it happens, if this comes to fruition. Andy.
Andy Morris, Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. In the past, when developers have come to town meeting asking for changes in zoning, they have given the town a gift to sweeten the deal. Sometimes they take the Hopkins Academy Band to Disney World. Sometimes they donate money to the Woodchuck Fund so more land can be saved elsewhere in town. Once they promised us a shiny fire truck, but maybe that's not a good example. I was wondering, with this particular zoning vote, there appears, if I can say this, to be no quid pro quo. Has the developer thought of, throwing something in so it's worth our while?
That sounds like a little bit of quid pro quo, so I think that's probably not appropriate.
Well, it has happened, in other votes. So I was wondering if there is none this time. And then I do have a second question, which is the impact on the town sewer system. I hear that we're pretty much at the limit of the sewer system, and this will tip us right over the edge, which in terms of sewers, you don't want to have happen. So what effect will this have on the sewer system in town? And if we accept these senior houses, are we going to have to spend millions of dollars upgrading our sewer system so we can handle them?
Thank you. Can anybody answer that question?
So we have to deal with estimates here because we're talking about future development. We don't know how many units, how big they're going to be, how many bedrooms are going to be in there. But using some estimates, I think we can get close to an answer. Right now you have a sewer treatment plant that's rated for 5,400,000 gallons of flow per day. We like to keep that flow below 80% of capacity. That's 5,329,000 gallons per day. We're below that threshold. We have about a cushion of about 54,000 gallons of flow per day. A rough estimate of the sewer impact based upon Title V estimate. Title V would be if we had to build a septic system for this development rather than using the sewer system. I'm coming up with a gallons per day flow of 8,360. So 54,000 gallons per day is your margin, and the impact is estimated. Again, this is an estimate based upon a future project. 8,360 gallons per day.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Yes.
Hi again, this is Bianca, Epstein, 77 Hockenham Road. So first of all, I think I heard the price being $425,000 for senior housing. And I just have to say, I don't think that's senior housing fair cost. And so I had an amendment. Okay, that prior to transferring, including or changing the zoning on that 5G parcel, 37 Middle Street for senior housing, that we table it for now, and that a specific senior housing committee made up of Hadley seniors, 50 years and older, for the purpose of determining an appropriate price range for seniors.
Okay, so you don't, that's not an amendment. You need, if you want that, you need to make a motion for that.
Okay.
It's not an amendment to the article.
Okay.
So if you want to reconsider and come back, we can talk more. Shell.
Okay, I need a little reminder of our past history here. Am I correct that when Mr. Roberts came to us for a zoning change for the East Street Common, that there was an affordable housing piece in there?
I think Mr. Dwyer can answer that.
There was no zoning change. That was in the overlay district.
Okay, what exactly did we agree to in terms of the affordable housing piece there?
Mr. Roberts obtained a variance from the ZBA that would excuse him from adding affordable units on site in exchange for making a cash contribution, which is going into an escrow fund at the moment. There's a piece of every sale price going in there, which will then in turn be turned over to the town probably after we form an Affordable Housing Trust Fund committee to manage.
I have to say, as somebody who at one point in my life spent a year and a half as a paid organizer for a senior group and who is now 62 years old, you know, there's a lot to like about this project theoretically, but I do seem to remember that this body had some conditions around an affordability piece that got bought out. And I have deep concerns about that. I feel like this fund is, there's no land to necessarily put those houses on, and I feel like we didn't really get what we supported. So I'm not real comfortable going forward, even though the plan seems to be well designed and well thought out.
Thank you. Jay.
I think the problem
Name
is...
and address,
I'm sorry.
please.
Jane Nevin Smith, 16 Sunrise Drive. I think the problem is not what Mr. Roberts wants to build, but that Hadley does not have a zoning bylaw that allows us to have cluster housing like Hatfield has for senior housing. We need, because you can't build individual units, which is what our bylaws require, and make them inexpensive. We need to reassess our bylaws for senior housing.
Nina Pollard, 10 Crest.
Hold on one second. I think you're gonna respond.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple of things. The cluster senior housing in Hatfield is a condominium. It happens to be duplex units. The cluster senior housing in Hadley is a condominium. The market that Mr. Roberts found was for detached units, but it is a condominium. It is not individual houses on individual lots.
Do we allow duplexes in that?
We allow duplexes and up to 4 units. That the choice of what goes in is up to the applicant. The application that was presented to us was for a couple of duplexes and mostly single units.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Nina Pollard, 10 Crestview. I have a question of what actually is 55 and older senior housing. And one of the caveats, is there anything in those plans, or however it's written, that more and more seniors are becoming the parents and caregivers and guardians of kids? Is there anything within those that says, no, those places are limited under 55? I wasn't clear.
Okay, I understand the question. Mr. Reedy, can you answer that?
There is nothing restricting children from living there. I think it has to be that at least one person is over the age of 55.
So there is, it doesn't,
The Hadley bylaw for senior housing does indeed allow cluster units.
Okay, thank you.
As we perceive them.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Holly?
Actually, my real name is Ann Zanzo, 38 West Street, Hadley. I'm real grateful for the developer's idea, and also I like the Dion's, and I have a lot of friends on Middle Street. But my concern about this project is that it's not necessarily in the right place. And when I walked by, I also got a call today, which made me feel like a senior citizen, that I could get a ride to the spaghetti supper at the senior center this Friday night. So we could have senior housing somewhere else because we have that kind of transportation. I kind of get a kick out of the East Street Commons. I very much would like a condominium myself, but when I sit there doing the math, gee, I could sell my house for this, but then I gotta buy that. Do I have enough money to do that? And when I walk by the East Street Common, that song by Pete Seeger usually comes up in my mind. And you could, between now and when we vote on this, when it hits the ballot, it's called Little Boxes. And if you Google the meaning of that, that's what this whole thing kind of brings into.
Thank you. Yes.
Stacy Cooney, 105 East Street. I'd just like to say, as others have noted, that those East Street Common houses are cookie cutter, baby McMansions at best, it feels like. And but what I would like to say substantially is I'm concerned about the fact that only 25% of those units went to people already living in Hadley. That is something that I'm very concerned about. There's no point in making senior housing in the town if the seniors who already live here can't afford it.
Peter Mulady, 144 Mount Morrow Road. I just wanted the applause to die down, because clap, clap. If you'll, those of you who have this handout, if you'll turn to the page which shows conceptual development, Middle Street Commons, you'll notice there's a computer line drawing on the bottom. And notice the spacing between the houses depicted in the drawing on the bottom. Then notice the density of the houses in the top drawing. And by the way, this is the top, okay? And then look down at the current senior housing, which is just down here. And notice the density of that housing. So, in a sense, this is deceptive.
Edwin Matuska, 116 Stockbridge Street. As much as I don't really agree all the time with the planning board and stuff, the issue before us tonight is not the senior housing. We are changing the zoning of a portion of the town of Hadley. Now, I would just, that's all we're doing. One of the things that, if we do change the zoning, one of the things that is allowed is cluster zoning. But are there other things that would be allowed if we change the zoning of that parcel in town? Right now, we have somebody's word that says, yes, I'm going to build that. It's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
If someone came up to the owner and offered him more money, what would happen? If the zoning is already changed, there could be something else there. We don't know what that would be. If there is, Jimmy, can you explain what are some of the other things that would be allowed in the senior overlay district?
Jimmy, please.
Thank you.
If this is rezoned to the senior housing overlay district, the only thing that would be allowed there that is not allowed there today is senior housing. There is no catch-22 that you're allowing this and something else will jump in place of it. The zoning bylaw doesn't allow that.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, I'm Carl Solowski, 34 Middle Street, Hadley, and I'm a farmer, and when I see land like that, it makes me sick that they're going to develop it. But that's Mr. Dion's problem. He wants to put 9 houses there if he doesn't get the senior overlay. I don't have a problem with 9 houses, but 29 houses behind my house is going to be pretty bad. And then these guys got senior overlay, go 2 houses up from me behind the Buys and the Vakulas. There's a piece of property right next to the senior center, which has the overlay. But no, these guys want to make some serious money, so he's going over to his property. Now, you want to change the zone, and you already got a zone there.
Mr. By.
Frank By, 40 Middle Street. One member of the planning board said earlier that Mr. Roberts is going to contribute cash money to...
Closer to the mic, Frank. So people can hear you.
to the planning board, whatever they have in mind. But are we in the business of, which eliminates the low-income housing, which gets him off the hook to supply that? This fund that he's going to play the planning board. I don't think we're in the business of building low-income housing, the town of Hadley is. And I think we should abide by our planning board members with the zoning that they presented to us.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Wallace, and I'm at 28 Middle Street. So I'm sure you all can figure out that I'm adjacent to the 30 Middle Street property. My real issue here, a number, but the contention that the senior overlay was determined in 2008, and that's now insufficient. There's 388 acres on that overlay. Seems like a lot of acreage to me, and Carl mentioned there is vacant lots that could be built upon. But there was an update to the master plan in 2017, and you all decided not to change the overlay. So you had the opportunity, in my opinion, to make some changes, but you did not choose to do that. Second of all, I'm not sure how many people understand what Middle Street is. It's a national scenic byway that runs from South Hadley to Northfield. There are 9 scenic byways in the state of Massachusetts. There's one that's a nationally recognized scenic byway, and that's the one that runs through the middle of Hadley. One of the things that makes Hadley special, it's the only special road in the state. And I think we need to be cognizant of what we build along Middle Street, along with East and West Street. As I drive up those 3 streets, if I look behind the houses, I see tracts of open property. So if other people want to sell their home to a developer, are we just going to say, oh, how much money is that going to bring into the town? Sounds good, let's go for it. So all of a sudden, we have dense sprawl, a city feel to our town. So another objection. Talk about the survey that 55% of the people in town said senior housing was important. On the other hand, 99% of the people in town in the survey stated that they identified the town's rural areas and agricultural areas as the most important aspect of living in Hadley. So again, 99% of the respondents of the survey in 2017 identified the rural atmosphere and agricultural heritage as important to them. A little bit higher than 55%. I have other points, I'll let it go with that. We're doing a sewer study, so that tells me that there's an issue with the sewers. And once you start adding homes, you got things happening with the sewers, so I'll let it go with that.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson.
Tom Henderson, 1 Safer Lane. I'm in favor of the extension of the senior housing area. The current area, although it said is 388 acres, there's really no contiguous acreage available other than that one other lot that was mentioned, which is just still a cut-in on 47. It's just a few 1,000 feet down from where this new location would be. You're going to have a cut in there anyway because it'll be housing if it's not senior housing. There are no other areas in that senior overlay housing large enough to put a clustered set of housing for seniors. I've been in town for over 40 years. I'm looking forward to retiring and moving into senior housing. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Linda.
Hi, Linda Hannum, 8 Sylvia Heights, Happy Mass. There are what seems like hundreds of places that these little beautifully protected farmlands exist in our community, all lined up like a postage stamp around the outside with houses. And so what I'm seeing is that if people want to now have access to this, somebody just has to agree to have their house knocked down to get access to the land behind it. And so no one's here talking at all about there's a home that's going to come down and a road that's going to go in where there's that house that's there now. And so I know there was an issue years ago with the property where there was going to be some development, and then that was protected because it was impossible to get access to those lots, and they were trying to get these little skinny flag lots, and if you stood on one foot and squinted your eyes, you could make it possibly work. And it just doesn't seem to make sense. Just because you can do it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And so I would vote to protect this land and to try to not get access to all these kinds of beautiful farmlands. I need pictures for my calendar, come on.
Thank you. Joe.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I am curious about the impact Does this project, if we voted through, put us at risk of another 40B ram through? And for those who don't remember what 40B is, it's the state law that says if your affordability percentage falls below, is it 10% in the town, that a developer can put anything they damn please in there without town zoning or town planning bodies having any say in it. So I don't know where we are in terms of that threshold, but I think if we're putting in luxury houses, we might very well be near the tipping point there.
Okay, Jimmy, you want to?
Right now, regarding 40B, the town is approximately, the state threshold is 10%. If you have 10% or less affordable housing in town, then a proposed 40B housing can come in and supersede, bypass all zoning bylaws regardless of what they are and put in 40B housing within reason wherever it deems possible. Town of Hadley is presently at just under 13, almost 13%, so we exceed the 10% threshold. If this senior housing is put in, they are required to put in 15% affordable. So this will, in fact, assist us in getting a little bit ahead of the curve of the 40B. So it will not be a detrimental effect on 40B.
Thank you. Sir.
Mark Dunn, 13 Highland Circle. I'd like to say that I was at the public hearing when I heard a lot of the abutters, if not all of them, speak against this and speak their concerns. I want to say on behalf of Mr. Roberts and Mr. Dion that Mr. Roberts is a respectable developer and has done quality construction, but I don't think this is the right place. The overlay district was not just willy-nilly drawn lines, it was thought out, planned out, and there are reasons behind that. Going to the other side of the bike path, he has a lot, a parcel that only has one outlet, which means now he's going to be able to triple the density under the guise of elderly housing, and all that has to dump out onto what we've heard is a scenic byway with a delicate historical fabric there on Middle Street. Practically need a traffic light then. And the other thing I wanted to say is, how would we all feel if this was in our backyard? We're going to vote, against those people right there. I don't think we feel good if this was in our backyard. I'm all for it, but not in this location.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Barbara Henderson, Safer Lane, previously of Sylvia Heights, previously of Mount Warner Road, previously of Shaw Lane. 43 years we've lived here. And I don't want to have to maintain my home anymore. We missed out on the East Street because we got in our downsize that we're in now 6 years ago. And at the time, I think East Street was just starting to percolate or something. I would like this to go through because, number one, Scenic Lane doesn't really start there. It starts pretty much at the bend. And then it becomes River Drive. You've got Valley Malt. You've got Valley Malt right across the street, which is an industrial complex now. You've got the center of town, which is all commercial buildings. This is right next to the bike path. I can walk to the senior center. I can walk to the library, the center of town, Dunkin' Donuts. I don't want to have to do the maintenance on houses anymore. I want it done for me. We want it done for us. The people that have moved to East Street Commons, and you can't tell any developer in town that they have to sell a house to a Hadley resident, right? If you want to sell your house, you can't say, you can only sell to somebody who lives in Hadley. So the fact that 20% of the people in East Street Commons, who I've spoken to some of the people there, they're very happy with their community there. They're happy with the quality of their homes. They're happy with where it is, the proximity to everything. If it becomes 9 homes, there will be a driveway there. So you're not preserving a field. You're not preserving farmland, which actually, when you look at the map, if you look at all the farmland in town, I mean, just look at all that farmland in town. I live in the middle of 40-something acres of farmland off of Safer Lane, okay? This is an enclosed area. It's got bike path on one side, houses on the other. It's going to be developed so that there's a large section of land behind these homes. The way they're going to be designed has to go through the planning board. So you're looking at a concept. You're not looking at exactly what it's going to look like. You're only voting on, can it be these homes for senior people who want to stay in town. Our alternative is to buy an even smaller house or move to Northampton or Amherst to buy a condo. Like move to Greenleafs. Oh, thanks a lot. That's nice.
Okay, keep it down, please. Let her speak.
So we are for it. You're not really going to see these homes even from the road, right? The driveway goes in a couple of 100 feet before these even start.
Okay, time, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Goff.
I'm Rolf Goff, 17 Newton Lane. What we're talking about here is a zoning change.
Come closer to the mic, please.
We're talking about a zoning change, primarily zoning change for profit, okay? There is already plenty of overlay and a lot available for building on. But we're talking a zoning change. If it can happen several hundred feet up from there, it can happen in other areas for other reasons. So again, you know, do we want to start changing the zoning that the planners had really put a lot of effort into to put it in the right place, just because it's more profitable to move it over, you know, another several hundred feet? That's pretty much, you know, and the quality of life for the neighborhoods that have pre-existed is going to change forever if, in fact, a cluster housing development comes to be in this area. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Marion Chapman. I live at 35 Newton Lane, and this is going to be in my backyard. I will not have my beautiful Hadley pastoral view anymore. So I do feel emotional about this. I would rather die than public speak, so I do not do this lightly. Why the request for this zoning? I believe that Rolf hit it on the head. We're talking about a $14 to $16 million project, okay? Add it up. He says the properties are going to go from 400 to 600 per unit, okay? Times 28, right? That's 14 to 16 million. There's no affordable housing in there. Not that I want that either. I really like my field. They say that the taxes to be collected are going to be $150,000 a year. Okay, great. Well, if you build that same project in the land that's zoned for it already, we get $150,000 per year as the town. So this is not giving us anything. This is not giving us anything. They say 20% of the houses that have been bought in the previous senior complex with Hadley residents, well, it's only 5 units out of all of those. 5 units out of all of those. All the others have come from outside. A lot from Amherst, I hear, are coming, which Amherst people can be fine. But we're not, as a town, we're not taking care of our own senior citizens.
Closer to the mic, please.
We are not taking care of our own senior citizens. This is just a ruse. And it's a $14 to $16 million ruse. The median house home value in Hadley is $336,000. Who can sell their house and buy a $500,000, $600,000 senior house there? It's just not answering the town's needs. If we keep building these units, besides the increase of the septic and the sewer systems, we're building a new senior center. We're going to fill up the senior center. We're going to have to build another senior center. It mind boggles. It really does. Personally, I'm very concerned with the plan. We've got a huge swale that comes up against the backside of our house, which is about 4 feet away from where our long septic leach field is. I'm concerned that that would attract mosquitoes. Right now, I have a dry basement, but I know of developments in town where they've been building here, building there, and guess what? The water table rises. Okay? How are you going to fight that?
Time, please.
How are you going to fight that?
Time, please.
But,
Your time's up.
okay.
You wanted to talk more, come back.
Stacy Cooney, 105 East Street. I hate to do this, but I would like to make a motion to call the question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. And we have a second. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we're going to vote on Article 17. And before we vote on Article 17, please remember we have 2 more articles to go, so please don't leave. Okay. This is a zoning article. As I said earlier, it requires a 2/3 majority. So, all those in favor signify by raising your cards. Okay, hang on. Put your cards down so that we understand. The motion is to extend the senior housing overlay district. So if you vote in favor, you are voting to extend the overlay district. To rezone, yes. Okay, everybody understand?
Can I make a motion?
No. Okay. All those in favor of Article 17 signify by raising your cards. Okay, I'm going to need help counting. I have too many out there. Hang on, please. People that I asked to count, please come forward. You can put your cards down for a second until we get this organized, and then we'll start. Okay, we're ready to roll. All those in favor signify by raising your card. Right side can drop your cards, left side can drop your cards, front tables can drop your cards. Waiting on the minutes.
Randy, tell them they can put their hands.
In the middle, you can put your hands down. Okay, all those opposed, raise your cards. Over here, you can drop your cards. Right side, can cross my arms. Thank you. Please, thank you. Okay, I have the results. In favor, 63. Against, 148. Motion fails. Please don't leave, we need you. Okay, we're going back to Article 15, please. All right, Article 15, once again, move that the town amend Chapter 195 of the Code of the Town of Hadley as delineated in Article 15 of the special town meeting warrant held on November 7th, 2019, and incorporated by reference herein. Do I have a motion? And a second. Okay, Mr. Maximowski.
Yes, sir. Since the article's already briefly been explained,
Quiet, please.
After talking to town council, many of the edits that were recommended by Joel Bard didn't get in, none of the edits got into this article. However, there is really only one that the council feels is substantive enough to amend right now. He said the other ones, if he really thinks that they're worthwhile, he can get back at the annual town meeting. So, with that said, I make the motion to amend, I move to amend the motion as follows. Amend section 195-21, section B, by deleting the word municipality and replacing it with the word zoning board of appeals. This appears on the top of page 19 for those that want to look at it. It's in, section 5B, section B, number 5, number 6. number 6, not number 5. Amend section 195-21, section B6. By deleting the word municipality and replacing it with the word zoning board of appeals.
Thank you. Could we have your amendment up here, please? Okay, so we have a motion to amend, and I heard a second. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to vote on the article. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 120 to 3. All right, Article 16. This is a zoning article, requires 2/3. Move that the town amend the zoning bylaw by deleting section XXIV titled Erosion and Sediment Control for Stormwater Management in its entirety, and by deleting in the table of context the text in section XXIV and replacing it with reserved. Do I have a motion? A motion and a second. Mr. Maximowski.
The planning board at the public hearing recommends this article unanimously. And for anybody else, section XXIV means 24.
What does the article do for us?
Right now, like I mentioned before, section 24 in the zoning bylaws was, I've got exactly, wait a minute, I do have it. Was adopted in 2008. Oh, that's the senior housing, that's right. It was adopted about 15 to 20 years ago, and it was about stormwater in the old MS 4. The general bylaw that was just adopted replaced that section, and town council recommends that we have the general bylaw addressing the stormwater. We don't need the zoning bylaw at all. But anybody that comes in for site plan approval and other things, the businesses will still, now they have to comply with the general bylaw.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Again, we need 2/3. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 125 to 0. Okay, before we go, again, thank you all for coming out this evening, and would somebody like to make a motion to dissolve the meeting?